Yes, Your Honor. But before we begin, the prosecution would like to make appearances in the court.
Go for it.
My name is Niharika Ray, and I, along with my co-counsel, Madison Nagel, and Jacqueline Wolf,
Good morning.
represent the state in today's case. We also have a few items that we'd like to tend to present.
Okay.
These include the jury instructions, the verdict form, a copy of Midland's case law, special instructions, Midland's penal code, stipulations, indictment, and order on motions in limine. But we would like to make a judicial note of subsection D of the order on motions in limine.
Before you make the judicial note, how about you give me the stuff so I can look at it?
Yes.
Has opposing counsel had a chance to see these documents?
Yes, Your Honor.
Have you seen those documents that are in her hand? Now, what would you like us to take judicial notice of?
Order on motions in limine, subsection D.
Okay.
And that just states that Cameron Poole has been declared unavailable for this trial.
All right, it will be noted.
Thank you. And the prosecutor now has a few questions about your preferences regarding movement about the well. Are you free to move about the well?
You can move about the well as you see fit. I only ask that you ask permission before approaching opposing counsel, the bench, and a hostile witness. You don't have to ask permission before approaching your own witness.
Yes, Your Honor. And as to the jury trial, should we direct all of our arguments to you and refer to you as Your Honor or members of the jury?
You should refer to me when you're asking for me to rule on something as Your Honor, since we don't have a jury box. All other times, just pretend that we're the jury.
Yes, Your Honor. And finally, the prosecution would like to invoke Rule 615, the constructive sequestration of all witnesses except for the party representative. At this time, the prosecution does not have a party representative.
Defense?
Our party representative is Ms. Whitney Bowman. the
6.
defendant.
Okay, she can stay in the courtroom. Everyone else is constructively sequestered. Do you have anything else before we begin?
No, Your Honor. At this time, we're ready to proceed.
Defense, do you have any pre-trial matters to deal with?
Yes, Your Honor. First, permission to make appearances for the record.
Of course.
Good morning. My name is Adrian Camacho. To my right is Faith Buckley.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning.
She will be delivering today's closing argument. To my far right is Chris Sample.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning.
He will be delivering today's opening statement. Together, we will represent the defendant, Ms. Whitney Bowman. And with that,
Good morning.
we're ready to proceed in today's trial.
Opening statement?
Yes, Your Honor. Madison Nagel for the prosecution. May I proceed?
Yes, you may.
Your Honor, opposing counsel, members of the jury, may it please the court. This is Officer Winston Thomas, or as his friends and family lovingly call him, Winnie. Aspiring to be a police officer from the time he was a child, Winnie quickly became one of Midland's finest. He spent many years in the police force, and after being injured on the job, his wife urged him to find a safer position. J.C. Longstreet, the owner of Rock the World, was happy to hire such an experienced and friendly man to work on the security force at the park. And Winnie quickly became just as popular as the other attractions at Rock the World. Sadly, even with all of his experience in the field, Winnie could not have prepared for the events that took place on August 30th, 2012, the date on which he fell into a coma that he has yet to awake from, as a direct result of Whit Bowman's childish greed. Throughout the summer of 2012, Whit Bowman conspired with Cameron Poole to steal money from Rock the World. By issuing fake World Tour bracelets to cash customers, Whit Bowman and Cameron Poole skimmed $15 off the profits of the park from each customer. When Detective Kimball and Longstreet suspected that something was amiss, Poole was immediately removed from working the ticket booth. For fear that they would be discovered, Poole and Bowman decided to steal even more money from the park. Today, we will ask Officer Thomas, after Poole robbed the ticket booth, Officer Thomas chased Poole towards the park, towards the Tunnel of Terror, where Whit Bowman had told Poole to meet him, because the Tunnel of Terror has a back exit to the parking lot. At this time, Officer Thomas and Poole ran into the active ride, and instead of shutting the ride off, Whit Bowman deliberately put the ride into blackout mode, directly causing Officer Thomas's injuries. Today, the prosecution will show you beyond reasonable doubt that The defendant, Whit Bowman, is guilty of robbery 1 against Officer Thomas, guilty of robbery 1 against Haley Floyd, and guilty of theft by deception. And to do this, we'll be calling 3 witnesses. Our first witness, Haley Floyd, will describe the financial organization of the bracelet scheme used by Whit Bowman and Cameron Poole. And he will also describe his knowledge of the knife used in the robbery in the ticket booth. Our second witness, Rory Shelton, will also describe his knowledge of the knife as well as the history of the relationship between Cameron Poole and Whit Bowman. Our third witness, Mr. J.C. Longstreet, the owner of Rock2World, will describe how Whit Bowman deliberately disobeyed him in regards to ride operation as well as his disregard for the employee handbook. Today, at the end of today's trial, my co-counsel, Jacqueline Wolf, will ask you to find Whit Bowman guilty of robbery 1 against Officer Thomas, guilty of robbery 1 against Haley Floyd, and guilty of theft by deception. Because, ladies and gentlemen, on August 30th, 2012, Whit Bowman took everyone for a ride. This reckless and careless joyride that was meant to profit Whit a few measly dollars from the park ended with a bang, and now an innocent man's life hangs in the balance. Not only did he conspire to steal money from Rock2World through the entirety of the summer, when he was meant to be found out, he conspired to steal even more money from the park, one of Midland's oldest institutions. And because he knew of his guilt, Officer Thomas was injured directly because of these actions. Thank you, Your Honor.
Defense?
Yes, Your Honor. Chris Samuel for the defense. May it please the court.
Go for it.
Your Honor, opposing counsel, members of the jury, a gunshot rang out. People panicked and a mistake was made. On August 30th, 2012, an amusement park called Rock2World was robbed by a man named Cameron Poole. It was Cameron Poole who threatened the park's accountant, and it was Cameron Poole who was running away from security. But during that chase, he was running towards a ride called the Tunnel of Terror. And during that run, a gunshot rang out. People in the park, they began to panic. One of the people in the park was an employee who was operating the Tunnel of Terror at that time. She also began to panic. But while she was panicked, while she was confused, the chase did not slow down. And Cameron Poole ran into the Tunnel of Terror. And that employee, not being trained on how to handle a situation like this, she tried to shut down the ride. But unfortunately, she just made a mistake. And in an effort to do so, in the heat of the moment, she only turned off the lights on the ride. But the ride itself kept moving forward. Officer Thomas was injured, and Cameron Poole got wet. And today, the prosecution is charging that employee with robbery in the first degree and theft by deception. Members of the jury, this is that employee. Her name is Whit Bowman. She wasn't the one who was threatening the park's accountant, and she wasn't the one running away from security. She heard a gunshot, and she began to panic. And unfortunately, she just made a mistake. Now, we, the defense, we have no burden of proof in today's trial. The law requires that we prove nothing to you. The burden of proof solely rests at this table right here. They must prove to you all 3 of their charges beyond a reasonable doubt. Members of the jury, beyond a reasonable doubt is the highest burden in our judicial system. This means that they must present facts so compelling, so persuasive, that if you're left with any doubt based on reason or common sense, you must find Ms. Bowman not guilty. Now, theft by deception, members of the jury, means that you intentionally rob another of $500 or more while creating a false impression. And robbery in the first degree means that you threaten force or use force against another with the intent to commit a robbery while at the same time being armed with a deadly weapon. and members of the jury, all the evidence in today's case will show how Ms. Bowman did not rob anybody, how she was not the one executing any of these actions in which the prosecution will allege. They're going to try to prove that she did so through means of complicity. And complicity means that you intentionally aid another in committing a crime. And members of the jury, they will not be able to prove that burden today, not beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, to show this, we will call 3 witnesses. Now, first, we will call Charlie Kaminsky. Now, Charlie Kaminsky is a cab driver, and he picked up Karen Poole after the robbery that took place on August 30th. You will hear how Karen Poole was making all these statements of how he robbed Ryan. But when Bowman on the phone, you will hear, said that, I didn't want anything like this to happen. Second, Ms. Bowman will come and testify on her own behalf. She will tell you how she had no knowledge of what was going to happen on August 30th, and how she did not intentionally help Karen Poole in committing this crime. And lastly, we'll call Billy Isaacs. Billy Isaacs is a riot operator, the one that is in charge of Tunnel Terror. She'll explain to you a few things about how the riot operates. Now, at the end of today's trial, my co-counsel, Ms. Paige Buckley, will come before you. She'll show you how there's reasonable doubt in their cases today. And at the end of today's trial, she'll ask that you find Ms. Bowman not guilty. She was not the one who threatened the Parks and Council members of the jury. She was not the one who was running away from security. She was the one who heard a gunshot. She began to panic, and she just simply made a mistake. Thank you.
Prosecution, would you like to call your first witness?
Yes, Your Honor. Mass name for the prosecution. We would like to call Mr. Haley Floyd to the stand.
Mr. Floyd, you're aware you've already been sworn in?
Yes.
May I proceed?
Yes, ma'am.
Please state your name for the record, spelling your last.
My name is Haley Floyd, F-L-O-Y-D.
And what do you do for a living, Mr. Floyd?
Well, I'm an accountant at Rock-the-World. I know, not the biggest profile job, but with the economy, it's one of the greatest jobs I can be at. Rock-the-World is a Midlands institution, and I've been there as a child.
And did you bring any changes with you to the park when you started working there?
Yes, I instituted a new bracelet system. The system that was being used before was more of a less than accurate guesstimation system, and with it, I made sure that the bracelets were numbered, and that's how we kept track of World Tour bracelets and regular bracelets.
And were there any issues with this system?
Objection, Your Honor. Leading questions?
I don't think so. Sit down, Counselor. You can continue.
Thank you. Would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes.
And were there any issues with this system?
Not at first, not until the summer of 2012.
And what happened that summer?
Well, so my system had been working before that, but during that summer, the number of regular bracelets was on the rise, while the number of World Tour bracelets was going. The number of World Tour bracelets was on the rise, while the number of regular bracelets was going down. But there were more people at the ride, so I knew something was going wrong.
And what did you infer from this information?
Well, I knew it wasn't going well with what was happening in the ticket booth, so I tried to figure out what was happening.
And did you tell anyone about the discrepancies in the ticket sales and the number of people at the park?
Yes, well, I mentioned it to Rory Shelton, who plays the Raptor for Rock-the-World, and she said that some customers had mentioned that the bracelets seemed different.
And what did you do next?
Well, so I decided to follow her along her rounds and see if the bracelets were different myself.
And what happened when you did that?
Well, when I saw them, I saw that the bracelets were the same color but a little faded. Also that many of the family's bracelets didn't have the numbers on them.
So what did you do next?
Well, then I went to Cameron Poole's locker. Cameron Poole had been working in the ticket booth, So I opened his locker, and lo and behold, I saw rolls of colored bracelets in his locker.
And what did you do after that?
Well, I told Longstreet, and he suggested I work in the booth for a little while to see if things evened out. I was ready for that because I thought it might be a little fun adventure. Boy, was I wrong.
And what happened when you were working the ticket booth on August 30th, 2012?
Well, I was checking the sales that evening, and I saw Mr. Bowman Mr. Poole coming to the ticket booth, and I saw the flash of a blue handle of a knife in his pocket.
And what happened next?
Well, he came into it was a knife that I remember seeing belonging to Whit Bowman, and he came into the ticket booth, and he told me, "Give me all your money, or I'll carve your face up."
Thank you, no further questions.
Cross-examination?
May I inquire?
Yes, you may.
Good morning, Mr. Floyd.
Good morning.
Now, when you began to notice these discrepancies, like you said on direct, you worked the ticket booth on August 30th, 2012.
I'm sorry?
When you noticed the discrepancies, like you said on direct examination, you ended up working the ticket booth on August 30th, 2012.
Yes, after events where I tried to figure out where the discrepancy was coming from, and discovering that Mr. Poole had the tickets, I worked at the ticket booth, yeah.
Now, that day, you saw your boss, Longstreet, talk to Karen Poole, is that right?
Yes.
Well, Karen Poole, he didn't seem happy that you were working the ticket booth, is that right?
No, he didn't.
You thought he was angry.
I believe he might have been angry, yes.
And what did you think, or did you believe he was angry?
I thought he was angry, I think.
Now, after this, Karen Poole left, right?
Yes,
And he came back later that day.
yes.
Now, he was the one who threatened you, right?
Yes, Cameron Poole threatened me with a knife, yes.
It was him who robbed the ticket booth that day, right?
Yes.
It wasn't with Bowman.
No, but it was with Bowman's knife, what I thought to be with Bowman's knife.
But you don't know how Karen Poole got that knife, did you?
No.
Now, I want to rewind real quick, Mr. Floyd. When you first noticed the discrepancies, you immediately thought it was Karen Poole, right?
Yes, Cameron Poole was the one who worked at the ticket booth.
And to verify what your assumption was, you went to the employee locker room, right?
Yes,
And you opened up Karen Poole's locker, right?
yes,
You noticed his fake World Tour bracelets, right?
yes.
No further questions.
Any redirect based on that?
No, thank you.
You may be confused. Prosecution, would you like to call your second?
Yes, Your Honor. At this time, the prosecution calls Ms. Rory Shelton to stand.
Ms. Shelton, you're aware that you were sworn in?
Yeah.
Thank you, Your Honor, for the prosecution. May I proceed?
Yes, you may.
Good morning. Could you please state your name for the court, spelling your last for the record?
My name is Donnie the Dinosaur, Dinosaur.
Could you please state your given name for the court?
My name is Rory Shelton, Shelton.
And Ms. Shelton, how are you connected to today's case?
Well, like I said, I am Rock the World's very own mascot, Donnie the Dinosaur.
And how did you come to work at Rocker World?
Well, ever since I was a young child, I was fascinated by the greats. You know, the Philly Fanatic, the San Diego Chicken. For every Halloween, I was a different mascot. I knew I was meant to pursue this role when I landed the Midlands Marina Middle School Meerkats. Ever since then, I've been building my craft, first working at Rules Rivertown and now at Rock the World.
Now, you mentioned Rules Rivertown. What exactly is Rules Rivertown, Ms. Shelton?
Well, Rules Rivertown is this quaint little amusement park in the South China of Midlands. It's mostly known for its manager, this hippie named Buttons Conroy. There, I was Danny Dolphin, and I really loved that role because kids like dolphins way more than dinosaurs. But there were just a lot of problems at that park, and I didn't want to risk my career.
Now, you mentioned there were a lot of problems. What were some of them?
Well, one of those problems was Cameron Poole, and just like Taylor Swift sings, I knew he was trouble when he walked in.
Now, Ms. Shelton, what exactly do you mean by that?
Well, he first came on my dolphin radar when I realized that several gifts were being given away at the ring toss stand that he was working at, so I staked out the stand and I noticed that several lovesick teenagers slipping him 20s so we could help him win stuffed prizes. Buttons ended up moving Cameron to work a ride, and then Whit Bowman started working the ring toss stand.
And Ms. Shelton, who is Whit Bowman?
Well, she's right over there. At the time, I only knew that she was just another worker under Buttons, and she seemed to know Cameron. And while she was working the ring toss stand, prizes just flew off the shelf. Buttons ended up firing both Poole and Bowman together.
All right, Ms. Shelton, now moving on to your time at Rock the World, when did you start working at Rock the World?
Well, about 3 years after I left Rules Rivertown, I started working at Rock the World. And to my surprise, I saw that Whit Bowman was there too. And I was actually shocked to find Poole not there, because it seemed like Bowman was the brains behind Poole's entire existence. I mean, the two were definitely peas in a pod, but Bowman was clearly the smarter of the two. And I mean, just like I thought, Poole showed up about a year later.
And what happened when Poole showed up?
Well, I mean, for a while things were going on pretty normally. You know, Donnie the Dinosaur was taking pictures with customers and doing my scary dinosaur act. But then I noticed that there were an awful lot of World Tour customers hounding me for photo ops.
Ms. Shelton, what exactly are World Tour customers?
Oh, well, World Tour at Rock the World is kind of like the VIP treatment. You get to skip a couple of lines and, of course, get your picture taken with me. Now, don't get me wrong, I love having my picture taken. It's what's going to make me famous one day. But there were just an awful lot of them, and it seemed like their bracelets were different colors on the same day. And on the same day, they're supposed to be the same.
So what did you do when you noticed this inconsistency?
Well, I decided to become Donnie, the dinosaur detective, and do a little investigating. So I noticed that Poole would often leave his stand at the ticket booth and go over and talk to Bowman at her ride. So I started to take pictures closer to where the co-conspirators were meeting, and the first couple of times, it worked like a charm.
What do you mean work like a charm, Ms. Shelton?
Well, they didn't even notice me, and I got to hear lots of their conversations. One time I heard Bowman say that this is going even better than expected. I'm almost out of my version of the World Tour bracelets. And then another time I heard Bowman say that, to suggest to Cameron that something about like lowering the cash-only prices so they could get a better cut.
Did you hear anything else?
Oh, well, yeah, on August 29th, which is the day before my birthday, I noticed that Bowman asked Poole if he had a knife. And then Bowman said, don't worry, I'll get you one and you're gonna need it for a job. But that confused me because Poole works at the park and we're not supposed to have knives at the park.
So what happened the next day, Ms. Shelton?
Well, on August 30th, which is my birthday, I was riding rides and I went into Bowman's ride. And then as I moved up in line, I noticed that Poole and Bowman were talking together again. And I thought I saw what looked like a knife handed over. Bowman gave the knife to Poole and said, it'll serve Longstreet right, and you should teach Longstreet a lesson.
Did anything happen later that day, Ms. Shelton?
Well, I went back into prehistoric mode as Donnie the Dinosaur, and nothing seemed to happen until that evening when I saw Poole burst out of the ticket office with what looked like that knife in one hand and then a bag in the other.
So what did you do?
Well, Poole was being chased by Officer Thomas, and everyone was running towards the Tunnel of Terror, so I followed to figure out what's going on.
Did you see anything interesting at the Tunnel of Terror?
Well, first I saw Bowman standing in front of the ride with her hands over her eyes like this, and then I noticed that the lights were off, which was weird.
Well, why was it weird?
Well, the way the rides work, the only way to turn off the lights on the ride is to pull this blue lever that's clearly marked maintenance. That's the only way to turn the lights off. Even in an emergency, employees are only supposed to hit the red switch that turns the ride off and turns the lights on. But thankfully, the lights came on a little bit after, so everything was okay.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. May I inquire?
Yes, ma'am.
You say you worked at Rules Rivertown previously,
Yeah, that's where I worked before, building my craft.
and there you met with Bowman.
Yeah, she was a worker there.
You also met Cameron Poole there.
Yeah, we kind of all got to know each other.
A few years later, you find yourself working at Rock the World.
Yep, 3 years after starting to work as a dinosaur.
And a few weeks later, you find out that Whit Bowman is also working at Rock the World.
Yeah, that's what I said, yeah.
But when you find out that Cameron Poole is working at Rock the World, you just assume that a scheme was in the works.
Oh, of course. The two of them had been working together at Rolls Rivertown, so obviously, like, I thought the same thing would happen.
Going to your time at Rock the World, your job position requires you wear a full body costume.
Of course it does. Yeah, I'm a dinosaur. Dinosaurs don't have normal people things. See? Dinosaur.
Thank you, Michelle. In order to do this, you must wear a headpiece as well.
Yeah.
And during your time at Rock the World, you claim to have overheard a few conversations between Whit Bowman and Cameron Poole.
Yeah. Lots of them.
But you did not once ever hear Whit Bowman tell Cameron Poole to rob Rock the World.
I clearly heard Bowman tell Poole that it'll serve Longstreet right. And Longstreet owns Rocker World, so
Is that a yes or no to my question?
I did not hear the words that you said come out of Whit Bowman's mouth, no.
You also never heard Whit Bowman tell Cameron Poole to threaten Haley Floyd with a knife.
No, but definitely handed over that knife.
Is that a yes or no to my question?
I never heard that, but I definitely saw him hand over a knife.
You are certain that he handed over a knife.
Yeah, like in the ride. It looked like a knife.
Is that your testimony today?
Okay, I'm not 100% certain, but I'm pretty sure.
Going to the August 30th of 2012, you were there at the time of the incident when Cameron Poole robbed Rock the World.
hmm
At this time, it was 9 p.m. at night.
I can't say for certain because I can't wear a watch when I'm a dinosaur, but yeah, it was kind of starting to get dark, so I guess it was 9.
And you were still wearing your Rock the World costume.
Of course.
Now, you claim to have seen Cameron Poole running with a knife.
Yep, and a bag.
Can you tell us with full certainty, that that was Whit Bowman's knife?
No, because I have things in front of my face, but I am very certain that with the best I could, that was definitely a knife.
Thank you. Your Honor, I have no further questions.
Any redirect based on that?
No, Your Honor, I just asked whether we would be allowed to step in.
She may be excused. Prosecution, you may call your third and final witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. At this time, the prosecution calls J.C. Longstreet to the stand. Good morning.
Morning.
Would you please state your name for the court, spelling your last name for the record?
My name is J.C. Longstreet, Longstreet.
And how are you related to today's case, Mr. Longstreet?
Well, I am the CEO and owner of Rock the World.
What exactly is Rock the World?
Rock the World is a family business that is an amusement park in Breckenridge County, Midlands.
And how exactly does Rock the World operate?
Well, we try and offer fun at affordable prices to families. So we offer a $20 package for a standard wristband or standard ticket, and a $35 World Tour wristband. Gets you some extra amenities, cut some lines. It's a good time.
Now you just mentioned prices. Could you tell us how the finances at your park operate?
So I keep all of my tickets purchased, expected revenue streams, cost secured, all of that in spreadsheets online as well as in account books.
Would you recognize those spreadsheets if I showed them to you today?
Of course.
Permission to approach opposing counsel, Your Honor?
Granted.
Let the record reflect that I am approaching opposing counsel with prosecution exhibit 1, spreadsheets.
So shall reflect.
Let the record reflect that I am approaching the witness with the same.
It will.
Now, Mr. Longstreet, what have I just handed you?
My park profit and loss sheet from 2010 to 2012.
And is this a fair and accurate copy of this document?
I believe so, yes.
And do you keep these regularly in the course of your business?
Yes, of course.
And when exactly were these spreadsheets made?
Right after, they were updated every year.
Your Honor, at this time, prosecution moves prosecution exhibit 1 into evidence.
Any objections?
No objections, Your Honor.
They will be admitted.
Now, Mr. Longstreet, what exactly does the spreadsheet show?
Well, these show our profit and losses, our revenues, and any costs that we incur. And in 2012, when I was looking these over, I found some inconsistencies.
What exactly are these inconsistencies?
Well, these inconsistencies is actually rather a very odd consistency. See, in 2010 and 2011, in every year, I keep expected and actual revenues. Expected revenues are what we expect to bring in given weather conditions, how many people were monitoring buying food and drink in the park, things like that. And you see in expected and actual ticket revenues in 2010 and 2011, we're off roughly by 40, 60,000. Just general throwing away old bracelets that are broken, or we get the wrong bracelets bought, or something that happens. But in 2012, we're only off by $35. So we saw that odd consistency. I told Haley Floyd to look into it.
Permission to approach the bench, Your Honor?
Granted.
So, Mr. Longstreet, what did you do when you realized that something was amiss?
Well, as I said, I talked to Haley Floyd, my accountant, to look into the matter, and we suspected that the issue was with the ticket sales, with the World Tour tickets especially, and the ticket booth in general.
Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Longstreet, please continue.
At that point, I talked to Detective Kimball with the FCU, Financial Crimes Unit in Midlands, to see if he would agree with us, and he confirmed our suspicions.
Now, who exactly was working the ticket booth at this time?
The ticket booth was being worked by Cameron Poole.
And how did Mr. Poole come to work the ticket booth?
He was there on recommendation from Miss Bowman. She said that he would be the perfect man for the job.
And how do you know the defendant, Miss Bowman?
Well, Miss Bowman, sitting there in the black jacket, was told that was an employee in 2011, the year before, and was a very good employee. But in 2012, she came and she was angrier with me, and her mood only got worse as the summer went on.
First, let the record reflect that Mr. Longstreet has in fact identified the defendant.
It will reflect.
And Mr. Longstreet, could you explain these instances with Miss Bowman?
Right, so when Miss Bowman came to work at the park in 2012, in that summer, she got the standard raise, but she wanted more. And I explained to her that if I gave her a larger raise, I couldn't employ other workers. And I was trying to give an opportunity to employ as many fresh out of high school and college kids as I could.
And were there any other instances with Miss Bowman that you can recall?
Also that summer, I did find Miss Bowman operating the Tunnel of Terror ride. She was running the ride with employees on it in blackout mode, which employees are never, ever allowed to do.
Well, what is blackout mode?
Blackout mode is when the rides are run completely in the dark, but otherwise at full speed.
And what did you do when you saw Miss Bowman running the ride in this mode?
I mean, I was furious. I mean, no one is supposed to run those rides in blackout mode. They're inherently dangerous, and so I yelled at her that she should never, ever touch that ride again.
Now, Mr. Longstreet, directing your attention back to the issue of the ticket booth, what did you do in regards to that issue?
Well, I had Haley Floyd take over. I pulled Cameron off of the booth.
And how did the ticket booth run with Mr. Floyd running it as opposed to Mr. Poole?
When Floyd took over, all the revenue streams evened out, and we were getting as many tickets we were selling as many tickets as we should have been.
And did you ever see Cameron Poole later that day?
Well, Cameron stormed off when I put Haley Floyd in charge, and said he wouldn't work anything else. He was so angry with me. But I didn't see him later on until, I didn't see him, but Haley Floyd did later. I heard a scream outside, and I ran out of my office, and I found Mr. Floyd shaking outside the ticket booth, visibly scared, screaming, "Stop him."
And what happened after this?
After he screamed, I ran over to him, and I wanted to see if he was okay, and he was crumpled on the ground, sobbing that Cameron had pulled a knife on him and had taken off after stealing the money and the tickets from the ticket booth.
And where did you go after this?
After this, I got a call from Detective Kimball that something happened at the Tunnel of Terror, so I ran over.
And who exactly was operating the Tunnel of Terror when you got there?
I found out that Whit Bowman was running the Tower of Terror, and I was shocked. I just told her early that summer that she was never supposed to touch that ride again. I didn't understand.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have no further questions for the witness at this time.
Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. Paige Buckley for the defense, may I inquire?
Yes, you may.
Good morning, Mr. Longstreet.
Or,
Now, you hired Miss Bowman in the summer of 2011, correct?
that's correct.
You did not hesitate to rehire her again in 2012?
No, she was a good employee.
In the summer of 2012, though, you did hire Cameron Poole, right?
Yes, Ms. Bowman said that she would be a great asset to work our ticket booth.
You had him work the ticket booth that entire summer.
Yes, again, Ms. Bowman said that she'd be great, but apparently it didn't work out.
While he was working the ticket booth, he was responsible for giving out wristbands to customers, isn't that right?
Yes, that's how the ticket booth works. They get money and hand out the tickets and wristbands.
Now, in July of 2012, you noticed that the overall revenue for the park was down, even though the park was busier than ever, right?
Yes,
You found this odd.
clearly, I mean, our parks are busy. We were getting great revenue, we're getting our concessions, but our ticket prices are down, or our ticket revenues down, rather.
You thought that somebody could be stealing from the till at this point.
Yeah, of course, that's why we investigated the ticket booth.
Like you said, you investigated the ticket booth, and the ticket booth operator was Cameron Poole, right?
Correct.
Whit Bowman did not work the ticket booth in the summer of 2012.
No, Cameron was working it on recommendation.
Now, in the summer of 2012, you never saw Miss Bowman distribute any wristbands to employees, did you?
I hope not, that wasn't her job.
You never saw Miss Bowman take any cash from customers in 2012, did you?
Again, she wasn't certified to hold money.
Thank you, Mr. Longstreet. No further questions.
Any redirect based on that?
No redirect, Your Honor. We just asked if the witness be allowed to step down.
He may be excused. Do you have any further witnesses to call?
No, we do not, Your Honor. At this point, the prosecution rests its case in chief and requests a brief 5 to 10 minute recess prior to defense's case in chief.
Let's do 5 minutes.